It's been said that luck is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. Welcome to the Australian Hunting Backcountry podcast, where we will focus on all things hunting in the backcountry, not just in Australia, but everywhere that backcountry hunting is possible. My name is Tobias, and if you're a hunter with no backpacking experience, or even an expert, I would like you to join me as we explore gear, places, and technologies, hear lived experiences, different perspectives, and share the passion that people have for a hard-earned backpack hunt. I appreciate you being here with me as I try to increase the knowledge that will bring us better luck in the backcountry. The Australian Hunting Backcountry podcast is proud to welcome two new partnerships for 2024. Skeleton Optics Australia and On Track Meals are now both sponsors of the show. Skeleton Optics Australia is a family-run Australian-based business offering premium high-performance and durable sunglasses for active outdoor users. Skeleton Optics sunglasses use polarized Zeiss lenses and feature frames designed with lightweight and impact-resistant materials that provide a secure and comfortable fit. I personally now use Skeleton Optics sunglasses and would encourage you to reach out to Chris and Daniela if you would like further information on what glasses might suit you best. On Track Meals are made in Brisbane and is a 100% Australian and veteran-owned business. On Track Meals pride themselves on producing high-quality, shelf-stable, healthy, real food designed to be taken with you on your next adventure. Because the meals are not dehydrated or freeze-dried, they have retained all the flavour, don't require any water to be added, simply heat and eat, or they can even be eaten cold. They have a broad selection of meals with many more being planned and cater for some allergies and diet options. The coconut ginger chicken is now my new favourite, and On Track Meals will be accompanying me on many future adventures. Should be recording now.
All right.
All right. Cait and Tonia, welcome. Thank you so much for making the time to meet with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, look, it took us a little bit to work it out, but I really genuinely appreciate it because I know we do have a fairly significant time difference going on as well. So I'll get you guys to introduce yourselves in a minute, but just for the listeners, I am talking to Cait and Tonia, who are both based in Alaska, and Cait has a YouTube channel with her partner, Semi-Wild Alaska. And Tonia, do you have your own? You sort of have a YouTube, but you only do sort of Super Cub clips and things like that.
I don't do YouTube. I just have like my Instagram, and I just frequently, along with Cait and her partner, on their adventures.
Yeah.
We call her our unofficial ambassador.
All right. Well, yeah. So, Cait, I'll kick over to you if you just want to give us a bit of background about yourself and who you are, and introduce yourselves to everyone.
Like you said, I'm Cait. My husband and I moved up here almost 3 years ago from North Carolina, and we only intended to be here for about 13 weeks, but once we got here, we fell in love with it and ended up staying. I work in healthcare, which is partly how I know Tonia, but we met through some friends. She's an avid hunter, but I'm pretty much brand new to it since being here in Alaska. And so she's been very gracious about taking me along for hunting adventures. And so I'm sure we'll get right into the hunting trip, but she's the one I immediately thought of when I got that tag. So I wanted to bring her along for that.
Mm-hmm. All right. And Tonia?
So I grew up in the Midwest, and I started hunting as young as I can remember. I had like a BB gun that we were always like playing with and hunting. When I was 16, instead of buying a prom dress, I bought the first bow. My mom was appalled, and my dad was really proud. But it just continued from there. I feel like every time I move west or I move north. So I moved to Montana, and that's where I went from like being a deer stand hunter to learning how to hunt the mountains. And I got my first mule deer by spot and stalk, got into elk hunting, got a black bear with my bow, and Montana was awesome, but it just wasn't enough. And so Alaska has so much access. I found a job up here and I moved up here for the hunting and fishing.
Yep. I did spend a few weeks in Montana a few years ago hunting. We had a guide there, and then went and did a bit of our own sort of hunting as well. So yeah, I fell in love with the place, and have thought about going back ever since leaving. But of course, we all know what happened a couple of years ago that prevented overseas travel. But yeah, no. So Cait, which part of Alaska are you in?
So I'm on the Kenai Peninsula, in Soldotna, Kenai area, and we're right on the Kenai River, so tons of access to salmon fishing and lots of hunting in this area as well.
Yeah. Okay. And Tonia, whereabouts are you in relation to that?
I actually live like 20 minutes from Cait.
Okay.
But where we were hunting was quite a bit up north, and on my hunting adventures this year, I went as far as the road system will go up to Prudhoe Bay, chasing caribou, and I've been down as far south as Kodiak Island hunting here this fall too.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Well, look, full disclosure, I'm very jealous of what you guys are able to do. A Dall's ram is my number one fantasy hunt when I win the lottery. Or somehow work out how I'm going to make an excessive amount of money. I will be coming over there to hunt one. In the meantime, I am applying for as many competitions and so forth, through the Wild Sheep Foundation and that sort of thing, to try and win one in the meantime. So yeah, I guess this was sort of the reason why I really reached out in the first place. Was I saw the Dall sheep hunt that you guys both did, and really impressed. Really enjoyed the video, and then sort of dove into some of the other adventures that you and your husband are doing, Cait, and I saw you guys went on some bear hunts together, and even just doing the outdoor stuff that you do, the cycling and the sea kayaking and all that sort of stuff. It just looks absolutely amazing over there.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we started the YouTube channel just more as like a diary for our friends and family who thought we were all insane for moving to Alaska. And Alaska is like the best outdoor playground. It's been so much fun. But then it's transitioned into this channel, more showing people that Alaska is accessible. It's not all extreme outdoor sports all the time. I mean, there are definitely certain precautionary things that you need to do, and you need to be smart about it, but it is accessible, and there are ways to do it that, are really fun and safe.
Yeah. And the other thing I did notice that I'm probably most impressed with is that I am actually the second Tobias that you now know.
Yes. Yep. I work with a coworker whose name is Tobias, and he's been on a couple of our videos.
Yeah, I saw that. Well, there's not many of us around, and certainly I don't know many, so it's good to see that there's a few more out there.
Have your name represented.
Yep. So Tonia, you're not a hunting guide or anything yourself, are you? You just are really.
I just love to hunt. So I moved up here, and I kind of have the opposite of what most people do. Is like most times guys move up here and they drag their partner kicking and screaming, and they all want to hunt and fish. And I moved up here, and I'm like, all right, Rob, you can either come or you don't have to, but I'm going to Alaska for a bit.
Yep.
His family moved up this summer, got out of his work obligation on the job up here. He also loves to hunt. Yep.
Actually, the hunting guide, the head guide that we were with in Montana, he ended up moving to Alaska, and I think it was similar to you, Tonia, where his partner, his now wife, was like, same sort of thing. I'm moving to Alaska, and you should probably come with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was up here, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years ago and just fell in love with it. I'll be back.
I imagine I would probably have the same problem when I go there, not wanting to come home. So, but yeah, look, like I said, the Dall sheep hunt was really what suckered me into you guys, and so that's sort of what I want to focus on, because for a lot of people, not just me, a Dall sheep hunt is definitely a pinnacle hunt for them, and unless you live in Alaska and you have the advantage of being able to get a resident tag, it is quite an expensive prospect.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's expensive even with the tag, but I can't even imagine what the cost is if you're not a resident.
Yeah, well, I've heard it spoken about on other podcasts that it basically costs the same amount as a small truck, and over the
You're,
years, as the cost of the truck has increased, so has the cost of the hunt.
yes,
Yeah.
as a non-resident, you have to go with a guide, and the guides are not cheap. They're really great. A lot of them outfitters are awesome, but to fork over, what's an annual salary for some people to go on one hunt is just crazy.
Yeah,
I think the last estimate I heard was somewhere between 30 and 40 grand.
yep, no, and then for me, when you add in the dollar conversion as well, because ours is about, you know 70 cents in the dollar or something or other. So yeah, all of a sudden it's just,
Very, very expensive.
yeah,
And your flights here.
yeah, and the flights, and then getting yourself to Anchorage or Homer or wherever you've got to fly out from and so forth. But yeah, so it definitely is a once in a lifetime sort of prospect for me and probably for a lot of people. So I guess if we sort of start there about the advantage for you being a resident, and how that tag came about for you.
Absolutely. So as a resident, we have draw tags that we can apply for every year, and all the different animals that you can hunt within the state. Uh, and I think, let's see, they're due around like mid-December, or the
On my
application.
birthday,
What's that?
December 15th. On my
December
birthday,
15th.
so I know that one.
Yeah. And yeah, so the fall before I found out I got this Dall sheep tag, Tanya and I sat in my living room, and we went through, I think, with her boyfriend Rob on the phone, looking through all the different animals we were interested in hunting, and what were the most accessible, what were the ones that had the most success rate or the highest success rate. And me as a new hunter, I'm just like, yeah, this sounds great. I'm all for whatever. And we applied. I think, so. When did they come out, Tanya? It's like early February.
Yeah, they come out in February. I don't
Yeah.
remember exactly when, but
They call it second Christmas in Alaska when
Yeah.
we find out who gets these draw tags.
Yeah, yeah.
And I woke up that morning to several text messages saying,
including from
Cait,
me.
yes, Cait, check the list. Check the list. Oh my gosh. And I checked, and I could not believe that I got this like coveted any ram tag in this area. And it was in 13D, and it's an incredible opportunity. I was just blown away by it. I couldn't believe that as a new hunter that I got this, and then I was immediately terrified and excited. And immediately called Tanya to say, please, please, please come with me. I have no idea what I'm doing.
So part of the reason that we applied for this tag is because unless you're like an experienced sheep hunter and you've spent a lot of time like studying sheep, trying to distinguish rams that are legal if they're close. I mean, obviously, if there's a huge one, it's not hard to tell, but trying to distinguish what actually constitutes a full curl could be difficult, like a 7/8 curl versus a full curl. from a different angle, it could look really similar. So that's part of the reason as being like new to sheep hunting that we applied for this tag, is because we wanted to take, the risk of like not getting the correct animal, and like having to deal with fish and game if we were on the naughty list wouldn't have been fun.
Yeah.
And there is actually road access to this hunt, which is part of the reason that we applied for it. But then once we actually had this tag, the more we looked into it, the more it's like, man, we'd almost be doing this tag a disservice if we didn't fly in. And so we were like talking numbers, and I called some services and called Cait up. I'm like, hey, I found this air service. They're willing to fly us in on these dates. It'd be this much. What do you think? And she's like, are you willing to pay $2,000 to go get flown in on a hunt that's not even yours? And I was like, heck yeah, it's like the most awesome backcountry camping we'll do, on top of like this crazy hunt. And so we put down our deposit, and it was just, tons of planning beyond that. After that, just
so much planning.
I don't want to work that went into it.
Yeah.
So, Tonia, have you hunted sheep before?
I had not hunted sheep before, because you have to live in Alaska for an entire calendar year before you can hunt as a resident. Yep. And like most other people, I couldn't afford to fork out the money to go with a guide. And so without going with a guide, you have to be a resident in order to do it by yourself. And I've never drawn a sheep tag anywhere else. I've been applying for sheep tags in the lower 48, like Montana and Idaho, but as a non-resident, they're hard to draw. I mean, they're hard to draw even as a resident of those states.
Yeah.
But had never actually been on a sheep hunt. But so we bought some books because, I know how to hunt, and, you hunt the wind, and you like learn behaviors of animals. Like every animal's a little different. So Cait and I spent all summer working out and reading. Got our hands on the sheep books that we could, and just read, learning about their mannerisms, learning where we could probably find them, talking to anyone that I could like legitimately talk to is like, hey, what should we learn how to do for the sheep? And they're like, don't learn, get in shape. That's going to be your biggest.
That was like the biggest thing.
You need to be able to hike,
yeah,
and hike with a heavy hunting pack. And I thought like elk hunting was hard in Montana, and sheep hunting was probably 10 times as hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that said by a couple of people, is that with sheep hunting, if you think you're in shape, get in better shape. And then when you think you're in good shape, get in better shape again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the minute I found out about getting that tag, I started working out, and I work in like a physical rehab setting. And so I know how to get myself into really good shape. But even so, I mean, it was grueling. It was hard work, and it was several months. And even then, when we got there, I was like, I could have been in better shape than this.
Yeah.
It's funny because like there's like you can work out and you can lift, but there's like nothing to get you in shape like hiking with a backpack. And it was really funny because independently of Caitlin, I ran into her twice last summer doing the same hard hikes around here. Mm-hmm. Once we ran into each other on Slaughter, and that hike,
Slaughter Ridge, is a very
killer
popular hike here.
Right.
It's steep up and it's steep down, and I was coming up as she was coming down. It's like, oh, well, I know why you're here.
Yeah, one of the things I have learned as well is that gym workouts and, increasing your aerobic capacity and so forth is good, doing running and swimming and whatever else, but you certainly can't replace training with a pack, because it's a completely different set of muscles and whole different dynamics and that sort of thing. I had a conversation with a hunter who's also a personal trainer as well, exercise physiologist, and we spoke about this on a previous episode. And it is, the beach muscles are great, but at the end of the day, they're not necessarily going to help you in the backcountry with, side hilling and carrying a heavy load and all of that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think one thing I would heavily highlight is the importance of really strengthening your stabilizers and your balance. Like getting those dialed in is so essential because you are going to be straddling a cliffside or hiking up some very intense inclines, which for me was, I'm glad we started early on this because that I'm a little afraid of heights and but I was determined to do everything I could on this.
Yep. The exercise physiologist I was talking to ended up giving me a program that he has designed for backpack hunters, and it has some really unusual exercises in it. Most of them are with kettlebells. And I remember the first time I did this one, it's called a windmill, kettlebell windmill. And I won't bother explaining it, but you're on your knees and you hold the kettlebell up and you bend down and twist at the same time and then straighten up again and so forth. And I thought, well, this isn't really effective. I don't know why he would ask somebody to do this. And the next day I had pain in muscles that I didn't even know existed. And like you said, it was all about those stabilization type muscles. So yeah, I was quite impressed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I sometimes think about how great I felt at the end of that trip in terms of how in shape we were after hiking our butts off for several days. And I miss that. It's definitely not maintained since then because we're not spending hours hiking up really steep inclines.
Yeah. So just to be clear, and this is sort of for the listeners as well, when you say you got an any ram tag, that basically means that they don't have to be the typical legal that Tonia was talking about before, where the tip has to break the bridge of the nose or it has to be 8 years over or double broomed.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Anything, quarter curl, half curl, 3/4 curl, anything was game. And we saw rams, man. We
did.
saw sheep. I think, did we see sheep every day or we didn't see sheep one day, I think, was it?
No, so we saw them the first 2 days and then maybe 2 or 3 days, and then they disappeared for a while, and then they came back on another day when we made I think the last attempt to really sneak up on them. But we were unfortunately, I wouldn't say screwed over, but the weather really messed with our approaches. We had opposing winds, so we were in this valley off of a glacier, and we had wind coming from one end of the valley, and then we had wind opposing that coming up the valley from the glacier, and so our scent was blown absolutely everywhere.
The guy that flew us in said that the week we were out there was the toughest week they had that season because it was crazy. We had this one big weather system trying to push in one way, and like she said, the glacier wind, it would just push the other way. And the one day, I don't know how our tent actually stayed there. It was nuts. I built a rock wall because I thought we were going to blow away.
Yeah.
It was but not even like a one-sided rock wall. It was a 360 rock wall around our tent. And we had, I think, what did they say, like 50 plus mile an hour winds? And
we had 50 mile an hour sustained winds, and we had gusts over 60.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's
we
pretty
were
serious.
like, well, hopefully this tent won't rip it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if they stay like this, we're never going to get out of here.
Yeah.
I've heard stories of hunting guides leaving the tent up and then a storm blows through or whatever, and they come back to camp and there's the tent flattened out on the ground and torn and that sort of thing, and so they're literally sleeping out under the stars for that night.
We did a separate tent for our food, and our food tent got flattened, and that was before the winds even got super terrible. And so we took all of the stakes out of that and stole the guy lines off that tent to help pull down our tent that we were sleeping in.
Yeah, we attached them anywhere we possibly could on the tent we were sleeping in.
Mm-hmm.
We elected to do a separate food tent because you're not supposed to like sleep with your food in your tent, but we also didn't have like trees because we were above tree line to hang our food. And there's bears. We saw a mom and a cub quite frequently. Could watch her from camp, sit there with the binos, and be like, "All right, where's our mom? Where's Lee today?" And just like sit there and like, "All right, she's still like a mile away. It's a good spot for her."
Yeah,
It's a nice, comfortable distance.
Yeah. We were surrounded by thick berry bushes, so we were kind of surprised we didn't see more bears. But again, I think the wind definitely had them catch our scent, so I think they kept their distance.
Yeah. So, spoiler alert for everyone listening in. I strongly suggest people go and watch the video as well. But I will say that unfortunately, you didn't get a ram. You didn't get a shot away on this trip. So, I guess I'm saying this because I want to ask you why, if you saw rams and you had an any ram tag, so you could have shot anything from a banana to a legal, technically legal. Why did you choose not to?
I mean, the main reason we were never within good shooting range. We were able to spot them on, I would say, day 0 when we first flew in. We saw them the second, like that first day that we were actually legally able to shoot, because for the first day that you get in, you can't shoot anything.
Yeah.
And then, that first day we did see them, but they were, I don't know what, Tonia, like over 1,000 yards away. We could only see them through like the binoculars. And so, we spent a really good amount of time just stalking them and, trying to spot them and figure out where we wanted to try and attempt to get to the following day. We also were trying to see, because they were starting to move back down the hill, how far down they would come. And so when we actually did make our approaches, they either weren't there, they didn't show up, or the wind would kick up and they would bolt up into areas that we just had no luck. Like we could not have gotten into those areas.
Okay.
We tried one day to sneak around and get up behind them, because looking at the maps, it looked like maybe we could get on top of a ridge behind them. And there's just no way without like climbing gear to get up some of this stuff. Like the Chugach Mountains, it's a relatively new mountain range, so it is steep and rugged. And when we were getting dropped off, the guys were like, "Be patient, they'll come down," And honestly, one of the places where we saw the sheep, they explicitly are like, "You see sheep here, don't go after them. Like, that's not safe." And so it's like, we're trying to be successful, but also like a large number of hunters in Alaska, they get hurt. You have to get flown out in a helicopter. And with Cait's like first real big backcountry expedition, the last thing I wanted was one of us to get flown out in a helicopter, because that is a really bad way to end a hunt.
Yeah.
Did have one day, our like final big push for the sheep. We did have a really solid plan. We saw the sheep, and sheep tend to face the way that they're going to move. They'll sit up on these ridges for hours. And if you read about sheep and you watch sheep videos, you'll find multiple people have said that they'll just tend to sit and look where they're going to go. Like they'll just kind of point the direction they want to go eventually.
Okay.
And so I was like, Cait, we need to get around them and on the other side, and we need to beat them to where they're going to go. And unfortunately, we had spent the morning climbing up 1,500 feet. And to get around them, we had to go down that 1,500 feet down to the creek, and then go around 2 miles, and then climb back up again. And we spent hours, because every time you thought you'd get down where you could like go where they couldn't see you, because they just had this perfect perch. They could see everywhere.
Yep.
We think we're down far enough that they couldn't see us. Nope, we still had to go down. And so we hiked up, we hiked down, and then we were literally side hilling, holding on to branches and rocks, just like crawling to get around them. And we finally got up and we snuck up to almost to the point where we wanted to be. And we creep up over the hill, and they're going on that ridge exactly where we knew they were going to go. And we were literally maybe 40 minutes too late. We just watched them disappear, and it was like the saddest thing of my life. I almost want I was so proud that we
were so excited.
We were so proud because we had figured out what they were going to do, and they did exactly what we thought they were going to do. And then just the heart-crushing disappointment, realizing that we were too slow. Like, if we would have been able to move faster, cover the ground faster, that would have maybe had the chance.
And also, like, the wind kicked up at that point and just blew the scent directly to the two ewes that were in the group.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they spooked, all the rams spooked. We were like, no. That was so heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, and to be so close, and then yet so far. It's like, this is hard, but that's a lot of hunting. Just put in a lot of work for a chance, right? Even if you get the chance, it's not a guarantee.
Yep.
But we hiked our butts off.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's called hunting and not shooting, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. We knew from the start it was going to be, one of those once in a lifetime trips, and we set the expectations early where we said, if we don't get a sheep, at the very least, we got to go out in the backcountry, proper backcountry, 2 women just doing this hunting trip by themselves with the stuff that they flew in with, and just having a great time doing that.
Yep.
And so I think because we set that expectation, and we knew we weren't going to push ourselves to the point where we ended up on a ridgeline with a weather system moving in, we get hypothermia or something else happens, so I don't know that we pushed it maybe as hard as some groups would have, but I feel really good about how much we did push.
Yeah. Do you know what the statistics are at all in terms of success with the sheep tags? How many of them are filled annually?
Oh,
I don't remember what it is anymore.
I have the encyclopedia of tags in my garage fixing my trailer, and he will know.
Because it's just,
right.
I mean, it's not a high success rate type of hunt anyway. So
no, it's not.
I know
that was part of consideration for where we did apply for, is because it was a higher success rate than a lot of other areas, but it still wasn't very high.
Yeah. So, like, I know I've heard that, for example, elk tags in the lower 48, the success rate is something like less than 10% generally. So yeah.
My encyclopedia must have went on a parts run.
Well, I mean, I know I can't remember what it is, but yeah, I do know that it's low. Like, it's not even 50%. It's
no.
Yeah.
Sheep hunting's hard. Some people tell you it's one of the hardest hunts that you could do, especially like we had this great tag, but especially in general tag areas where like Caitlin and I can still hunt this year without having drawn anything. There's some areas we can still hunt the residents. The success rate's really low. It's brutal. I mean, you're fighting the terrain, you're fighting the weather, and you're trying to hike further than everyone else because everyone else also wants a sheep.
You're also having to contend with bears.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah. So, look, in Australia, we don't have a tag system as such. So, for example, I could go for a drive this afternoon and go and shoot 10 deer if I wanted to, as long as I've got the right permission and so forth. But other than having some general sort of hunting licenses, we don't need tags to shoot game animals. So very different system in America and very similar sort of system in Alaska. So I just want to touch on, you mentioned before about the fly-in regulation and you couldn't hunt when you got dropped off. So just explain that
Yeah.
for everyone.
So Alaska has the highest number of pilots per capita. And so there are tons of hunters who have plane access. They can just fly in to a really remote area where it might be ideal to go hunting for something. So they do have a restriction where you can't shoot the day that you fly in, because then people would just be flying in, shooting, and then flying out. So yeah, for I think the first overnight, you can't.
You can
shoot
you
anything.
can start hunting at 3 a.m. the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. That's for most hunts. There are a couple hunts that doesn't apply to, like certain things. If you're running bear bait in certain units, they make an exception to that rule. You have to be like your bear bait has to be like so far away from your plane. But in general, in Alaska, you have to wait till 3 a.m. the next day after you fly.
Yeah.
I mean, there are ones like black bear, which is available year round in certain units. Like, you don't have to wait an overnight to start hunting those. But if it is especially a special permit one, you have to.
Okay. Yeah. I suppose the theory behind that is it prevents people from using the plane to, circle around, locate the animal, land nearby, and use that as a significant advantage.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, they want to keep it fair chase and
Yeah. Yeah.
keep it as
Absolutely.
sport, right?
Yep. And then you have people like, say, Adam Grender from the Stuck in the Rut family, where he has his own plane. So he'll fly him and his wife in and friends and so forth. And, it obviously has that as an advantage as well.
Right.
Absolutely. It's really
one
nice
of my
if you know a
friends used
pilot.
One of my friends was dating a pilot for a while, and so I had the privilege of getting to take advantage of that and got dropped off for a spring bear hunt one year. And I'm toying with the idea of getting my pilot's license. I bought the books, and they're thick, and there's a ton of them, and there's a lot of information. And every time I think I want to be a pilot, I look at that stack of books in the corner, and I'm just like, but it would open up so many doors.
Yeah.
But planes are also expensive, and it's like you'd really have to. I think you'd have to. I'd have to learn how to be like a mechanic too. It's not just that. It's like if something happens, like, and you're in the middle of nowhere, you need to know how to fix it. So like first I have to like learn how to fly, and then I have to learn how to like take care of the machinery. So it's like it sounds really scary when you can in Alaska you can literally get to the middle of nowhere really fast.
Yeah.
And get completely stranded.
Yeah, that's right. And I've seen other videos and pilots have, owner pilots have landed and then tied the plane down and gone off and done a hunt and come back and discovered that a bear has taken an interest on something that they could smell inside the plane and has just opened it up like a can of sardines. So then they have to do a bush repair job on it. And
a lot of those planes, to keep them light, they're not even covered in metal. It's like a fabric canvas thing, and so sometimes they patch them up with duct tape.
Yeah.
It's like sounds terrifying to fly in something that was covered with duct tape.
Yeah. You'd be surprised at what they can do with material on planes. A friend of mine used to be a trimmer in the aircraft in the Australian Air Force years ago, and there is a jet plane that is actually cotton covered, and then they spray it with a special solution and it hardens the cotton, and they do that to reduce the weight in it, and that's what makes it so agile and fast.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty pretty extreme to think that a pair of jeans are holding your plane together for you.
Yeah, the Super Cubs that we flew in on were very light aircraft, and there was a pretty severe weight restriction that we had on those planes. And I felt, that you're just in like a flying tin can, and it's incredible, but it's also a little terrifying to think about.
Mm.
So Caitlin and I were lucky. A lot of pilots and stuff will restrict you to you, your gun, and 50 pounds of gear. And I was kind of like, most guys weigh more than Caitlin and I do.
Yep.
And they're like, how much do you weigh? And we like tell them, and they're like, yeah, you can bring 70 pounds of stuff. And we're like, oh, thank God. Because
Yeah.
like, I'm a freeze baby. And so it's like, man, every extra layer I could bring in, it was helpful. And for Caitlin, who has some like food restrictions, her food that she brought in ended up it was heavier than mine. She actually like freeze dried almost all of her own food because it's hard to find food that she can get. And so, or not freeze dried, she dehydrated it, all her own food. And so we were really happy to have the extra 20 pounds.
Yeah, there may have been an extra blanket on there too. I mean, we definitely threw out some other stuff for the added warmth.
So one of the things I was going to discuss with you as well was around your diet and the food preparation and so forth. Before I do that though, I just want to come back to what you spoke about before with the food tent and the issue with bears and so forth, and why that's so important to not have your food. I've even heard people saying that they've been told not to leave their toothpaste in their pack in their tent. So
Yep.
Just talk to us about that part.
Yep. Yeah, toothpaste, deodorant, anything that has a smell, do not leave in your tent at all. Put it in, like, we put our stuff in dry bags in a tent away from us, and ended up taking dry bags away from us because you hear horror stories. They smell one thing and they tear apart your tent, and that's your tent's your lifeline out there. You can't risk having it tore up. In the pouring rain, after we didn't have our food tent anymore, we were setting up a tarp so we could still eat outside of our tent. The last thing you want to do is wake up to a bear trying to eat you.
Yeah, you don't really want to unintentionally bait your own tent site. So we kept it in an area where we could still see our brightly colored bags, but we had it far enough away that it wasn't an issue.
Yep.
Conveniently, we left it within shooting range because we could shoot a bear. Like, we had the tag for it if one came in.
Okay.
Like, we didn't want it to happen, but also if it happens and it ate all of our food, that would also make our lives a lot harder because you're out there for 8 days and they can't. And sometimes, it's supposed to be 8 days, but they might not be able to get you for 3 or 4 days if the weather's wrong. Like, an 8-day trip could turn into 10 or 12 days if you don't have any food. We wanted to be able to, like, defend our food if we had to, like, if we were at camp. So we left it where you had a clear line of sight to it. That happened.
But yeah, we had to be extremely diligent every day about removing any food or anything that they could smell. I mean, down to sunscreen, everything from our packs, and putting it in this area.
Yeah, okay. I know, like, when I was in Montana, and Tonia, you'll probably recognise this as well. When we were in camp, in the outfitters camp in Montana, everything had to be stored in, all the food and so forth had to be stored in the bear-proof boxes and containers and so forth.
Yep.
Because the grizzlies in Montana, they don't get shot at, so they've got no fear of humans. So that was always a concern. And there was one day we went out on a ride, went for a hunt on horseback, and when we came back in the afternoon, the guide was quite shaken because there was a grizzly track over our horse prints from the way in. So yeah, he was. All of a sudden, he became very very alert, and we had our little canister of bear spray that we carried with us because obviously we couldn't. We had our rifles, but we couldn't carry a sidearm. But he was well prepared. He had a chest rig and so forth on him. Yeah, bears are just, we in Australia, our apex predators are water-based, basically. So
Yeah.
we have, crocodiles and sharks over here that really worry us. We don't have any big land-based predators. And despite the rumours that you might have heard, koalas are not actually bears. So they're completely, they're vegan. They're of no risk to us whatsoever. So yeah, that the whole bear thing is another layer of complexity over there.
I don't know. Sometimes those videos of the kangaroo jumping around, they look pretty mean.
Yeah, they kangaroos they will box on with you. They will attack you and so forth. But yeah. So in terms of your food then, Cait, because you've got so you're celiac and got some other allergies as well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the gluten is the biggest thing for me. And what I was finding in a lot of the food is it's really hit or miss anyway with backpacking food, but certainly dehydrated or freeze-dried gluten-free backpacking meals is even more hit or miss. And then on top of that, when you're trying to maintain a certain amount of protein and salt and other like carbohydrates in your meal every day, it's really difficult to find the right stuff, and the stuff you do find is quite expensive. So I just took it upon myself to start making my own meals. And so that was a long process. I think it took me probably all in all 3 months to get everything done. I ended up with way more meals than I needed, and I didn't take all of them with me, but I'm really glad that I did end up making my own, because it was worth having almost home cooked meals in dehydrated form.
Yeah, and there's nothing worse than having a gut bomb in the backcountry and having to deal with that as well.
Yeah, that would be awful.
So did you just dehydrated? You didn't freeze dry?
Yeah, the dehydrator was way less expensive than a freeze dryer,
Yeah.
so I just went the route of dehydrating them. It would be great to freeze dry. I think that rehydrates better than a dehydrator, but honestly, it did fine. It really wasn't that bad. I think the worst part is just that like the freeze dried vegetables don't always rehydrate as well as you want them to, and I think the other thing is like making sure that certain things are cooked before you dehydrate them, because if you're just rehydrating a raw vegetable, it's really not going to taste very good when it's rehydrated.
Yeah. Tonia, did you take your own food, or did you get Cait to cater for you as well?
I just mainly did the like pre-packaged stuff. I had some snacks that friends made me. So Rob, he dehydrated mangoes and some stuff for me. But mainly I lived on peaks and some mountain house, and I have a really bad sweet tooth, so a lot of candy
There's a lot of candy
because it was like it's quick sugar. If you need like if you're hiking up a hill and you're just like dead, like having some sugar is a quick way to feel better. And so I don't know, there's a lot of candy. It looks like a 2-year-old packed my pack, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like for the most part we had big meals for breakfast and dinner. We had big meals for breakfast and dinner, and we mostly ate snacks for lunch. But I think one of the biggest takeaways that we talked about while we were out there was just having a big variety of snacks, because you will get sick of the snacks that you're eating after a couple of days.
Yep.
Like by like day 4, Cait and I were like bartering. I will trade you a high chew for that.
So, Tonia, your food bag looked like a 6-year-old's birthday party.
Yeah.
It really did. There's a lot of high chews, and there's some Oreos.
Snickers.
It's great.
Yep. So,
I have a high tolerance for sugar.
Welcome to this segment of the Australian Hunting Backcountry Friends of the Podcast, and today I'm joined by Brad and Carly from Aussie Skull Mounts and Designs. Brad and Carly, welcome. Thanks for making the time to come onto the podcast.
No worries. Thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for inviting us here today.
Yeah, thanks very much for having us.
Yeah, no, all good. So I know we've had a bit of a chat already, but I want to start with by getting a bit of background about you two, who you are, and your sort of family, hunting, that sort of thing. You know, your outdoor life, and then we can have a chat about the business side of it.
Sure. So we're both born and bred in northeast Victoria, and we run a small family business. We have two young children, two girls, Evie and Gracie. And about 4 years ago, we decided that we wanted to start like some businesses and utilise the online space. And Brad has a really strong hunting background. So we decided to launch into some hunting-inspired metal art, didn't we?
Yeah, so yeah, that's the basic where we're at. But yeah, I had a strong hunting background growing up on a farm here in northeast Victoria near Benalla, so family farm. So sort of started hunting from really young age. I suppose we were six or eight, and then so always rabbits and bits and pieces, and that eventuates sort of the deer hunting's evolved from there.
And the hunting side of things for you, Brad, how has that evolved now? You're chasing deer around because you're in obviously prime Samba country, so. Yeah,
so I always a stalker, and managed to run into some guys here that were lucky to have some of the renowned best Samba deer hunters, I suppose, such as Noel O'Connor and these guys, and spent a fair bit of time in the bush lucky enough to spend time in the bush with Noel and a few other guys, and learn a lot of the tricks, and it did a lot of time, a lot of hard yards in the bush, and I got the rewards, I suppose. I shot some pretty good ones over time, but it's been a hard road. Yeah. Geez, having a mentor like Noel O'Connor in your corner, that's a massive head start. There's a lot of blokes who'll be jealous of you. yeah, their skills, their tracking and stuff are just next level. So it's sort of certainly just opened your eyes up to how those guys used to do it, because there just wasn't the numbers around then. So they were so good at tracking, and these are sort of the skills that you probably don't need so much nowadays with the numbers. Yeah, all right. And so, then you were saying you sort of spanned out into the business side of things and some metal art.
So a couple of years ago, Brad come up with like one design of a Samba deer, which we had plasma cut at the time, and we launched it. It must have been, I think it was the start of November, just leading up to Christmas one year, and we sold like 30 in a month. And we thought, all right, we're sort of onto something here. I just put on Facebook Marketplace. There was no online store or anything like that, and they sort of just sold really quickly, and from then on it's just evolved. Brad's our key designer, and I'm the key marketer, I guess.
Yeah, we're a good team. We're a good team.
And so now I think we have 12 designs in our collection. But from that first design, we went on to have a stall at the Wild Deer Expo last year. We also featured at the Mansfield Hunting and Outdoor Expo that was earlier this year as well. So we've just really grown from that one design to really expanded our range, and now we're starting to really start to focus on skull mounts. We just find that it's very hard to access like a really good skull mount in Australia, so we are currently have one in production.
Yeah, that was sort of an add-on from we had a couple of people sort of just mention to us, do you do skull mounts with your metalwork? And I'm a fitter and turner by trade, so, and we sort of had to think about it, and the metal art's fine, it's great at the shows, we move it moves along okay. But then that skull mount idea, that's just evolved now, and it's really exciting because it's it's something that a lot of hunters could utilise,
Yeah.
myself included. So that's been a really exciting addition to what we've already got.
Yeah, yeah. No, look, I mean, everyone would love to have the money to afford a taxidermist to mount everything for you, but at the end of the day, that's not a reality for people. And doing the Euro mount or something similar is really great option. So yeah, that's great that you've managed to evolve that part of the business.
And it's we had a lot of feedback from people.
Well-known people in the industry,
Mansfield and the hunting shop and stuff, that were really excited about our new design. So,
And we're going to have a range that will be released. Our first release will be a skull mount that will utilise the brain box being intact, because obviously the way people I don't know how to word that.
Yeah,
is to butcher their head, like how they
depends how they cut the skull.
Yeah, how they cut their skull.
It all depends on how they cut the skull to how these mounts will work, and it's something that will evolve with time.
Yeah,
and we'll try and make them sort of suit, different applications. Is the grand plan.
Yeah, yeah. So is are the designs, the skull mounts, are they designed to be mounted onto a wall or mounted onto a block, or are they like standing on a shelf or something?
Yeah, so our initial design that will be released in May will be just the wall mount, and the bracket just drops in. So that's our initial one, and then we have got there's already drafting up some designs for the more of a bench mount, so you can move it around mount as well.
Yeah.
Also looking at some, we'll look down the track at some bigger stuff. I had a buffalo head dropped in this week to have a look at how the weight and stuff like that. So we're looking at doing it will be a whole range of mounts.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That was going to be my next question as well. Is what sort of, I know we've spoken about deer, but what sort of animals are you expecting they're going to be able to be used for?
Yeah, well, I've already heard. I've already spoken to a few, and one guy was talking about a cougar skull and a bear skull and bits and pieces. So, so I think it's already getting bigger than we'd imagined already. So it's really exciting, and there's a lot of hunters out there with a lot of different critters there that would look great on a mount, rather than just skull cap them and screw them to the wall. I've got a lot to screw to the wall like that as well. So, it would be great to see them mounted the way you've seen them, visualise them in the bush and seen them, to have them mounted back on that angle. Yeah,
yeah. I'm going to New Zealand actually a week from today. I fly out and spending 3 weeks hunting over there. So I am hoping to bring back a representative tar and chamois, so I think one of these skull hooks would be perfect for that sort of sized animal with that sized horns,
Yeah, perfect. I hope you wish you well over there. That's exciting. 3 weeks over there.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, it'll be good. It's been a few years in the making, this trip, with of course, you know what happened over the last couple of years that prevented people from travelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We won't even mention it.
No. So you have a website up and running at the moment, and you said that the skull mounts are going to be ready for release in May.
Yeah, so we're Aussie Skull Mounts and Designs.com.au, and we currently have our skull mounts available to view online, and they'll be able to be pre-ordered from May, and we expect them to be shipped out early June.
Okay, all right. And any idea on pricing yet, or is that still yet to be decided?
We're looking at under $100.
We're looking at it,
plus postage.
At this stage, it's crept up a bit on us, but we're looking around the $100 mark.
Yeah.
So in comparison to a $1,300 to $1,500 taxidermist job, hopefully it suits a lot of the hunters in Australia.
Yeah. All right. So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you guys if they've got any questions, want to know some more information?
We're always active on our socials. So we have an Instagram page and a Facebook page. You can always jump on there. You can also jump on our website. We have all of our contact details available. Or we have an email, which is admin@aussieskullmountsanddesigns.com.au.
Yeah, great. All right. So any big future plans that you can talk about, either in the artwork side of things or actually, sorry, before we move on to that, Brad, I think you were telling me you saw something really cool that somebody did with one of your the cutouts where they put lights in behind it and so forth.
Yeah, so a guy just sent us through a picture of his. So he's mounted his. It's one where we've got a dog on point in the hills, and yeah, it's pretty cool. And he put it on his bar on the corrugated iron, and it's illuminated behind it, and it just looks sensational. So we've had a few come through lately with some people with new houses and outdoor fireplaces, and they're mounted, and it just so good to see our work going up on people's, and with so much pride.
Yeah, and people are so happy to share it with us. It's really great too. Like, we love seeing it. It's amazing to think something that we've drawn or Brad's drawn, and then someone's got it in the pride, above their fireplace or something like that. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And until you're a hunter, you don't realise how passionate it is to have that on your wall, and how much it means to not just to me for designing them, but to other people. So it's great to see them up.
Yep. Yeah. And people, whether they've got bars or a man cave or just something in the front entrance of your house, just to remind you every time you walk in the door that about that great memory or whatever. Yeah, that would be great to see that from your side of view as well.
And I think that's where the mounts are good too, because a lot of your deer, they mightn't be a 30-inch sambar or a 34-inch rooster, but you've still got that memory of that hunt in your mind, and it still means, that trophy still means a lot to you, regardless, you know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What's the saying? I think it was Fred Bear, or was it Aldo Leopold? One of them said something like, if you measure the success of a hunt by the size of the trophy, then you've missed the purpose of hunting.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Yeah, so. But down the track, so big plan for me in the next 10 years is to want to do the Grand Slam, the Australian Grand Slam. So I haven't got a cheetal or a rooster or a hoggy yet. So that's the plan in the next 10 years, to focus on that. So whether I, do a bit of guiding down here or do some swap hunts or whatever, I'll hopefully meet a few new people, and that's the plan. So and get over to New Zealand as well. Yeah. Hopefully. So.
Yeah, great. Well, one thing about this sort of, the hunting world, the hunting family, to put it another way, is that there's always somebody out there willing to give you a hand and help you out along the way, and potentially offer you a hunt, and likewise, you can exchange. So there's certainly some great people out there. I've met some fantastic people through the podcast.
And we've realised that through our journey over the last couple of years, that the hunting community has been so supportive, and we've met some great people, and
it just blows us away.
It's amazing. The support has been amazing.
From complete strangers that they're now our friends just because they've supported us. They've brought some metal off us, and then they brought some merchandise off us, and then they've grown to be our friends because they're so passionate about the same things, and it's amazing.
It's an amazing community, and it's great to be a part of.
Yeah, that's right. So in terms of the food, Cait, where did you get your sort of inspiration and meals from to do the dehydrating? Is there someone in particular that you sort of referenced often?
Honestly, it was several different websites, and I know I have the list somewhere that tells me exactly which websites, but it was REI, it was different hunting websites for people who have done their own dehydrating, and also just various ones that I happen to come across in general online searches. I have a fairly good idea of what to look for in terms of finding a balanced meal. And so I was able to quickly look through different recipes and be like, okay, this one seems reasonable. Here's how I might change it to be gluten-free, or I would probably need to add a little bit more of this or this to make it what I need.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. I've got a dehydrator. I bought one myself a number of years ago with the intention of dehydrating my own backpacking meals and so forth, because we don't have as good a selection over here as you guys do. You know, you guys, like we experienced the dehydrated and freeze-dried meals when we were in America, and the quality, you know, like those that you mentioned them before, Tonia, the Peak Fuel, the Mountain House, Gastronome, just to name a few. They're just exceptional. Like they're and over,
Really?
yeah, and over here we only have probably 2 or 3 brands. There's a big sector, a big backpacking and hunting sector in New Zealand, one of our sister countries. So we get a lot of stuff from them, but it's still not as much as you guys have over there. Obviously, you know, you have a much larger hunting population and so forth. So yeah, I got sick of eating the meals and decided to delve into dehydrating myself. So did a lot of experimenting and yeah, bought all the gear and the Mylar bags and the oxygen absorbers and that sort of thing. Did it all before the dirty C word hit the world, and so I had all these meals stored in the freezer. And while that was all happening, I decided that I'd better eat them in case they degraded or went off or whatever. So ended up consuming them all. So now I've got to
How
start
did
all
they turn
again.
out?
They were great. Yeah, there was a few. Like what I would do is cook a meal, you know, for dinner one night and cook extra, and then I would put that into the dehydrator just as one meal. Just to dehydrate it and try it to see whether it worked. And if it worked, then I would, you know to repeat that process or adjust it or whatever. So there were a couple of tricks that I found. Mark Livesey from I think it's Treeline Academy. I don't know if you've heard of him. He does a few dehydrated meals and posts about it. And there's also a guy. He goes under Backpacking Chef.
I got a couple from him.
Yeah, he does some really good ones as well. He takes a real deep dive into it, and I don't go that deep, but yeah. So there were a few tricks that I picked up, and a couple of things that didn't quite work because they didn't quite rehydrate properly. So you have crunchy bits in it, but there was nothing wrong with it. It was just that's just how it is.
Crunchy.
Yeah.
What were some of your favorite ones that you ended up making?
The Mark Livesey does a pad thai, which was really good.
That sounds so good.
Yeah. Anything with rice in it as well is good and easy too. You know, you pre-cook the rice beforehand before you dehydrate it. And yeah, like I said, I would just cook a meal for myself and my son. And if we liked it, if it worked out well, I just threw the leftovers in the dehydrator, and 9 times out of 10 it worked. So
that's a great idea.
Yeah. So on the food too, how deep did you go into that? Did you work out your macros for each meal so you knew how many calories you were taking in each meal, or did you just kind of throw a dartboard at the candy shop like Tonia and grabbed everything you could?
I wouldn't say I was like down to the exact caloric amount. Like I didn't know the exact amounts, but I knew sort of what range I was within. And I wanted to make sure that each meal was at least at the very least 15 to 30 grams of protein, because I just didn't want a whole lot of wear and tear on my muscles if I couldn't help it. And yeah, I also wanted the carbohydrates because I wanted to make sure that I was getting enough fuel for my body, that I had enough energy to keep going. Um, so those were probably the biggest things. The three biggest factors for me in terms of the meals. But I did do some of the dehydrating of home cooked meals as well. I did one that was like chili mac. And that one was one of my favorites. And I did another one that was Thanksgiving dinner. So it
I
was
like that one the best.
yeah, Tanya did try a couple of them. Yeah, that one, it was, I'm trying to remember what all was in that one. I think it was like sweet potatoes. It was like dehydrated mashed sweet potatoes, some gluten-free gravy, ground turkey, cranberries, and some bouillon cubes, and I forget, and some vegetables, I believe. But yeah, that one was, even my husband has tried that one and he really likes that one.
Since I grabbed the peak meals, like for sure every dinner I was doing a peak, and most of those, they say they're 2 servings, but they're not. Because you're burning a ton of calories, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not a huge gal, you know, like if I can eat a whole bag of that in one sitting and it's supposed to be 2 servings, you know, a big man would definitely need to have more than just that for dinner. But
Yeah.
you know, like I don't know, like it says like your suggested daily intake for like a normal like human, like 2,000 calories a day. Don't go into hunting for picking, you're gonna survive on 2,000 calories a day. I thought I was eating somewhere for around like 4,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, it runs into a thing like you bring so many calories, but also like not just like how much weight we're bringing to, so it's hard.
Yeah. And that was another consideration is, I have some autoimmune diseases, and so those, in terms of preparation, I was working closely with my doctor and making sure that, you know, I was all prepared for this and was considering anything that I might not have already thought of. And so they were saying you need to be eating it at least like 35 to 400 or 4,000 calories a day if you're doing this kind of work.
Yep. And did you use anything to supplement some calories in your meal? Did you add oil or fat to it in any way after you cooked it?
Some of them I threw powdered butter into for added calories. I didn't, but honestly, I feel like we ate so many snacks as well. We were always snacking. So that was the way that we supplemented for the most part.
Olive oil is a good one to add. One of my meals I had like a packet of olive oil that came with it and said optional. I'm dumping it in. Yeah. Like, yep, I'm gonna take those calories.
Yeah. I bought some. I managed to find some little coconut oil sachets years ago. So I bought a heap of those, and I'd always take a few of those away, and I might put half into my black coffee in the morning, and then the other half into the meal at night, just to add some extra calories. Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Protein like shakes to the Mountain Ops. I like their meal replacement, or if they're meal replacement, or like a breakfast drink, but like just extra calories, extra protein. You know, I didn't do that every day. After a couple, you do that a day or two, you need a break from them. But like it's a good way to get extra calories too.
Yeah. And was water an issue for you up there?
No,
we were really lucky. So part of the issue is like some of the water that's there you can't even like really drink or filter, because from the glaciers there's so much silt, so you would like clog your filters instantly. There is enough like springs and runoff coming down from like hills and like snow melt and stuff that we had like a nice clear little creek by us. I think our pilot has dropped people in that spot before, purely just because there was a nice water source there.
Okay.
Yeah.
We only had to carry it from where we were to like where we grabbed our water, like maybe 100 yards, something like that. We didn't have to haul water very far.
Yeah. We just had a couple of little squeeze filters. We had like 2 Sawyer squeeze filters, and we just go and fill up several bladders of water and filter it, and then we were good. We really didn't have any issue with that.
Yeah,
we were lucky.
I also have a steri pen, and then also in case we ended up having to do silt water because we didn't know for sure where we were getting dropped when we left. I brought tablets and stuff as a backup because, you know, like stuff that's mechanical can fail. And the last thing you want to be is up there and being surrounded by water and not being able to drink it. Yeah. Dehydration is a real factor in not feeling well too.
Yeah.
And lots of salt. Salt's a huge issue too.
Okay. And did you supplement with salt as well, did you, or?
We had a lot of salt tabs, but we were pretty careful to make sure that we had a lot of salt content in our food.
The pre-packaged meals that I have had a ton of salt in it.
Yeah.
You know, so you eat too much salt and you get puffy, but you sweat it out.
So from a safety standpoint, we did carry salt tabs just in case.
Yeah. It's nothing worse than getting the cramp and having to try and get that out, and especially in the middle of the night and cold night, and you're laying in your sleeping bag and you get a cramp and you've got to get up and get out and try and stretch your leg or whatever. Yeah.
Or you get a cramp while you're trying to go to the bathroom, and that's just a terrible situation.
So what sort of gear did you guys take? I guess that was there anything in your gear list that was really specific for female hunters in terms of, you know, advice to other female hunters to let them know these are the sort of things that you should consider taking? Or did you just find that you were pretty generic?
You know,
go ahead, Donna.
I am a big fan, like, you know, maybe TMI, but like there's little thin pads that you can put on underwear because, you know, if you're like squatting and you're not like carrying a ton of TP and stuff, like just having at the end of the day getting rid of your like the liner keeps stuff a lot fresher.
Keeps the weight down on the stuff you pack in because you're not having to bring as many pairs of underwear, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a good pro tip. But in terms of clothing, I mean, most of it was just layers. It was just having multiple layers so that you could, especially when you're just sitting and watching, that you don't freeze, because as soon as you stop moving, that sweat starts to cool off and you just start getting really, really cold. And so just making sure that you have extra layers with you.
It was fortunate for us that this week that we were out there wasn't Shark Week for either one of us. It makes you a little more nervous in bear country if it would. But like the biggest thing with that is like making sure to bring stuff to keep clean. Like the biggest thing is you want to stay clean, like baggies for tampons if you're doing that, or like having a way to like do like cups, like like hunting during that week's not fun ever, but we were really fortunate that
there are ways to do it, but it's never fun.
Yeah. So that is a legitimate problem with bears as well, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's, you know, it's like whenever you hear of a bear attack on a woman, you're like first thought is like, man, was that her week? You know.
Yeah.
So like the biggest thing is like, you know, you want everything to stay clean, especially around your camp.
Yeah. Look, I'm a big fan of taking wet wipes myself. You know, just to clean up down there. You know, it's just far more comfortable, and there's nothing worse than feeling grungy down there. So yeah, a little bit of extra weight I think is worth it, but.
We definitely have some designated bath days.
Yeah.
Yeah, the creek bath was really cold.
Yeah, that was, yes, very, very cold.
Yeah. In terms of your clothing too, what sort of systems were you guys using? Like, is there a particular brand that you found that you had to buy, or did you kind of just use, general sort of clothing that was suitable for the hunting?
So
I
I bought a lot of brands of clothes throughout the years, like always trying new gear. And when I started hunting, there wasn't female specific brands and now there's like brands that are specifically for females, and like a lot of the bigger name brands are making women's clothes.
Hmm.
So it's nicer now than it was 10 years ago, but like having gear that fits you well is most important. And like the big thing for me is like making sure you have the wool, because like if you get damp, wool's still going to keep you warm when it's wet, versus like some of those synthetics, you get them wet and you're not going to be very happy.
Yeah.
And always having like spare socks. For Kate, I made her wear one of my shirts because her shirt was the wrong color. Like,
Yeah,
Kate,
that's
what are
something
you
that I
doing?
did not have. Yeah. Well, and I am extremely light skinned, and so anything that provides contrast in my skin makes me just stick out so much. And so not something I really thought of before the trip, but I think, yeah, the merino wool is a huge factor. I mean, some of my stuff is smart wool, brand for base layers. It's just tried and true. It's such a good brand. It's expensive, but I've had the same Smartwell stuff for like 15 years, and it's still good. It's a
Yeah.
great investment. In terms of hunting gear, like, since I'm newer to it and didn't have anything prior to being here in Alaska, I think most of the hunting, like the pants and the jackets and stuff, has been QU, which didn't have a women's line until just a few years ago.
Hmm.
But their stuff was a little bit more affordable, and it fits really well. It's also it has a lot of utility to it, which is great. I'm trying to think. First Light is another really
Yeah.
good brand that
My
with
base
some of the
layers,
shirts.
my wool's all First Light, and I have Kuiu pants that I really like. I also have some Sitka stuff that like my Wranglers. Sitka. Like I said, I've shopped around. It's kind of funny. Like some people stick to one brand, and it turns out my closet is a mix of what fits me best and what's the best for that day. It's like some days I'm wearing my First Light pants because they're a little bit lighter, and some days I'm wearing my Kuiu pants because they have the nice padded knees. If I'm crawling, spot and stock crawling, I want those knee pads. They also have a pair of Sitka pants that have knee pads. They're not as breathable as the Kuiu ones.
Yeah.
Just like finding the pants and the clothes for that day. I also have Raynaud, so it's really hard for me to stay warm. It's like a circulation disorder, and like if I'm cold or stressed, which sometimes hunting's stressful, so even if it's not cold, I just like lose the circulation to my hands and feet. So like taking like extra precautions to try and stay warm so I don't end up with frostbite.
No, I think I'm sitting here in my KU
You're
shirt.
repping
So yeah, I am a fan of KU gear.
Yeah, I like that their women's line takes into consideration the need for venting, which I feel like is such a huge issue with a lot of other brands. I mean, they're getting better, and I think Sitka also does a good job of this, but like providing the zip vents so that you don't have to just take the whole jacket off or unzip it in the front. You can just zip the armpit vents or like down your leg, and it feels so much better.
I was
Because
so mad a couple of years ago, which they fixed it now at one of the big name brands. My boyfriend had this awesome jacket, and it had pit zips. So I just went and bought the women's version of it and had it shipped here. And I got it, and it didn't have the pit zips. It was like the same jacket, but for the women's, and they got rid of the zips. And I was like, "What is this? This is garbage." So I like shipped it back, and was so mad and bought the men's one. And
yeah, because contrary to popular belief, women sweat too.
Yep.
And some of the pants that I wear actually are men's pants. It's like while brands are getting there, so not like Kuiu has way more men's selection stuff than women's selection. And for the hunt that I was going to be doing with Rob, it's like, man, I want those pants. And then I'm like, well, they don't make it in women's. So I guess I'm going to figure out what size boys I wear today.
Yeah. I guess that's just a cold hard fact of marketing and sales, isn't it? That men are the bigger section of the market, so a bigger section of the products have to go towards them. But yeah, it is good to see a lot of the companies, like Kuiu and First Light and Sitka and even backpacks as well. Trying to for women I've spoken to, trying to find a backpack to go hunting with, they were having to buy generic, backpacking type backpacks because they couldn't get anything else to fit them properly because, believe it or not, women are different to men and you got different shapes and different curves and all of that sort of thing. So
yeah, I have in speaking of backpacks, I got a Mystery Ranch backpack that is specifically for women, and that one was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
but you're right, it's totally different when I put on the equivalent size for men. It just sits differently on the body.
Yeah, when I first was getting into hunting, they didn't make women specific packs. I actually did what the other ladies you chatted with is like I had a backpacking, like just like camping backpack that I would wear because all of the men's packs that I tried on, the frames like didn't fit me, because like, well, that's not gonna work. And then it's like, and then like it just kind of sucked because then you're using those packs and you don't have a meat frame or anything. But now I have a Baru back that's super like customizable. I also have a Mystery Ranch backpack too that Cait was using for a little bit and then she got her own.
Yeah.
And so in terms of gear that you guys had as well, did you find that you had to buy gear specifically for this trip, or did what you have?
We did buy a different tent because being above the tree line, knowing what those winds could do, we got a Hilleberg tent. And man, after watching how my other tent that we used, that was a hunting tent, kind of that we were using for my food tent, after watching how that just got laid flat, I was so glad that we had the Hilleberg tent that we had. It did great in the wind. We stayed dry. I mean, we had rain coming sideways, and we were dry, snug as a bug in there. It was really happy. After this trip, the first thing I did when I got home was bought a new sleeping mat, though, because like I had slept on mine. Go on trips and you sleep on them a night or two, and kind of, oh, that's not great. It's fine, but man, after a week on my sleeping mat, compared to Caitlin's, I bounced on hers, like laid on it for a nap when we were weathered in one day. And first thing I did, I got home and I bought a new mat because like I'm not sleeping on my garbage mat one night longer.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, in terms of a sheep hunt, everything I kept reading or kept hearing from people I talked to is like, this is the trip where you don't want to skimp on the gear.
Yep.
You want to have the gear so that you are able to actually be out there and be comfortable and be safe. And so, it was assessing my sleep setup, making sure I had, a sleeping pad that wasn't over 15 years old, that had a really good R value so that I stayed warm, making sure that, I also had one of the sleeping bag liners for added warmth as well, just creating multiple layers. I trying to think if I bought clothing. I did buy one of the Kuiu full zip sweaters for an added layer, and that was a great buy. That kept me really nice and warm. I did buy also the Kuiu glassing mitts, the
Mhm.
down glassing mitts.
Yep.
And that was such a good buy. Those things keep my hands so warm. They're so nice. Trying to think what
I
else.
didn't I didn't personally buy this, but my partner, when he heard that I was going on a sheep hunt, he got me a super duper lightweight tent, or not tent, tarp that can be pitched multiple ways.
Mhm.
So you can make it into like a frame tent if you needed, or you can make it be a sunshade or to block the rain. And
That was
man,
amazing.
that was so nice to have. Like we just used our hiking poles and like, because it'd be clear and then 10 seconds later it'd be pouring rain on you, and
Yep.
like just to have that lightweight thing in my pack. Like Cait and I got pretty good at setting it up. We just like whip it up, and it was something that I didn't know I needed, and now that I have it, I'd probably not go without it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having that was definitely a lifesaver, because we'd be somewhere for hours and it would just be crazy wind or pouring rain or sunny, and that thing just covered us in all of those different scenarios.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm a big fan too of carrying a little small tarp to just hide under. Like you say, we had the same thing. A rain scud might come through and blast you for a couple of minutes, and it's just nice to be able to duck out of it and not end up completely saturated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's something that I had got.
Definitely got a lot of dry bags. I feel like most of our stuff was packed in dry bags intentionally, just to keep everything from getting soaked all the time.
Mm.
I'm trying to think. I mean, a lot of it I already had just from, being into outdoor
Yeah, like if you didn't
activities
have an
already.
inReach, you would have had to get an inReach or some
Yeah.
form of a GPS communicator, because that's how we chatted with their pilot, being like, hey, we're still doing fine, or hey, we're ready for pickup, and like knowing what time they're going to come get us. Also, like checking with family to let them know that we're alive.
Yeah.
Anxiety on people's parts.
Yeah. I mean, we did have a couple. We made sure Tonya already had the Onyx app on her phone, and so I got that on my phone. We also downloaded the Windy app,
Yep.
so that we could tell like how quickly the winds were moving, and we could tell our pilot, which was really nice. I think what else? Oh, I did my one really heavy thing on the trip was my pillow, and it was a Hest brand pillow, and it weighed 1 pound, and I did get a
Was
little
judging her for it the whole
He
time.
was.
I was like,
But
you're bringing this with?
it was so worth it. That was my one like guilty pleasure on the trip, was bringing that 1 pound pillow, but it made such a difference.
Mm. So Tonya, the sleeping pad that you had, what was that, and what did you end up buying?
So my sleeping pad that I had was, oh goodness. Cait was like, I didn't want one that's 15 years old, but I think mine was 15 years old. It was just like an REI brand, and it was like one of the first like self-inflating mats, and it was thin. And I bought it when I was like a broke college student, and it's always been just good enough, right? And I ended up going and getting it was a Thermarest. Is that what you have?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Neotherm, and it's like plushy and it's still really light, and I like saw the price tag on it, and like before that trip I would have been like, man, I'm not spending that much money on it. And after that trip, how bad my back hurt, I was like, man, that's nothing.
Yeah. It was worth it.
I would have paid anything to have a warm night's sleep, because it's like crazy, but like, we went camping a couple weeks later, and it was like cold, and I actually had a sleeping bag that wasn't as warm that I brought on this like camping trip we went on later, and I was warmer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even though that the sleeping bag I had wasn't rated for as warm, just that R value and the insulation off the ground and cushiness of it, and I was so glad that I spent the money, and it's like, why didn't I do it sooner? But also like between like getting a tent and like getting like the money for the flight service, and I also had a different hunting trip planned that I went to Kodiak, and that wasn't cheap by any means, that I was like spending the money for, and also like the other hunting trinkets. There's always something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not buying a new mat. If I would have had a sleeping mat before that trip, I would have been a real happier camper.
Yeah. I did end up buying, I'm trying to think, I did buy a tripod that I could attach to my rifle, which was...
It was a bipod, though, right?
Sorry, yes, a bipod, yeah.
Okay. Yep.
And that was a really good buy. That really helped a lot. Just being able to actually set up a shot and make sure that I wasn't, going all over the place while trying to steady it with a strap or getting into a really weird position to hold it. And I did get a new scope because mine was pretty old. It was easily like 15, 20 years old. It was the one that came with the rifle that my grandfather gave me. And at one point when we were trying to sight it in, the older one, I was just like, this thing is not cutting it. I can barely see out of this thing to the range that I need. And so, yeah, we ended up upgrading that. So those are a few upgrades that I made for the rifle.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, I did read that you were using your grandfather's Remington. So I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. So tell us a bit more about that rifle. Obviously the romance of having an heirloom to take on your hunt would have been a good part of it.
Yeah. So when we got here and I started getting into hunting. Dan, my husband, does not hunt, but he does like to come along and either, for the idea of helping to pack out or film. But once we started getting into doing that, I was talking with my parents and just saying like, oh, I'm looking at getting a rifle. And they said, actually, we have your grandfather's Remington 280. We'll send it to you. And he had just passed away. And so it was extremely special that I was getting this. And, because I hadn't been into hunting beforehand, he and I had never really connected on hunting before. And so it was just, I don't know, it was just it was just a very special thing to get that and be able to embark on something with a rifle that my grandfather got to use for his own hunting adventures. And so, yeah, it's a Remington 280. And it's a very powerful rifle. It's great for pretty much, well, for most things that I would want to hunt up here. But the only catch is it's hard to find the 280 ammo.
Also, her gun's older, and it does it's an awesome gun. But it's a heavy, right? She's got
it's so heavy.
Wooden stock. It's not made for backcountry hunting, right? It's something that I would not hesitate to bring deer hunting in the flatland. But man, props to Cait for hauling that thing up the mountain every day. It's I'm sitting here with my super light proof rifle as a 308 and pick up my gun and then pick up hers, and it's just man,
that's the beast.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
But I guess that was another piece that I did buy for my backpack was a rifle sling, and not the sling, but is that what it's called? The rifle sling?
Yeah, it's so that way you weren't having to connect your rifle to the pack, but to have it easily accessible. So that way you can just undo a strap and you have it in your hand.
Yeah.
Versus having to tie it up your pack where you can't get it out good, or having to carry it, struggling climbing over rocks with it.
Yeah.
One of the things.
We had done some spot and stocks where I carried it
there.
And I was just I have to get something to set it in so that I'm hands-free for this trip. Otherwise, I'm going to quit early. I just cannot haul this thing on without something to help.
Yeah. Look, coming back to the rifle, Jack O'Connor did all his sheep hunting with a timber stocked Remington 270. So, yeah, there's a certain amount of romance there with that connection as well with him. But 280 is a great caliber. Yeah, it's a lovely caliber. I guess if you really struggle to find ammunition, I think you probably find that the 280 Ackley Improved is maybe a little bit more popular. Certainly been made popular, and a gunsmith can just run a reamer into the existing chamber and open it up for you, and you could try that as an alternative.
Absolutely. I do save the shells, and just in case I can find somebody who can reload them for me. And I have the dies and everything. But what's that?
That one for you.
Yeah, we're just waiting for them to come up here. But yeah, I mean, I before the trip went to our local sportsman's warehouse, which is pretty much where we can find our stuff down here on Kenai Peninsula. And I just let them know what I was looking for, and when they would get the 280 ammo in, they would call me, and so I'd go and every time just pick up a couple boxes, and so was able to build the stock of ammo.
Yeah. So one other thing I'm going to ask you about gear. Now I noticed in a lot of it you're wearing glasses.
Yeah.
So glasses have become my curse as well. As I've aged, my eyesight's deteriorated, and I've lost the ability to see long distance. So quite often I'm hunting with glasses on. Any tips around how you managed that part of it?
I guess I'm fortunate that I can wear contacts. I do. So I had to switch to wearing daily contacts because I just get really dry eyes. I prefer wearing my glasses. But for this, I didn't want to have the burden of having to wear them when we were out in the rain, or or if it was really bright, because my eyes are pretty sensitive to light. So I ended up switching to dailies and just building up the tolerance for my eyes to contacts. And then at night or as soon as we got back to camp, would switch back to my glasses. Also in training for this, I did a really stupid thing, and I was a little too close to my scope, and it hit me right in the forehead, and got a little split. So I was definitely not wanting to put myself into another situation where I happen to break my glasses out in the backcountry.
Yeah.
So that was another motivator for me to make sure that I built up my tolerance for contacts.
Yeah. Cait, I've been testing the integrity of scopes with my forehead for many years, and have a collection of C-shaped scars to show for it. So yeah, that's one of the downsides of hunting with large calibers.
Yes. I didn't even know it happened until somebody pointed it out.
I had LASIK years ago, only in one eye, because I shoot with the right. I didn't want to have to deal with the glasses if I didn't have to.
Yeah. I am working towards getting laser, but I've got to wait for my eyes to settle first before they'll do it, because there's no point getting it done if they're going to change again in another 12 months. So
yeah.
I'd
love to do that.
Okay, so didn't get a sheep on this trip. Plans for another trip at all?
I think because we talked a little bit about expense, even though we weren't coming from another state or another country, it was still pretty expensive. And so this year I promised that I wouldn't go on any sheep hunts, and I would keep it more local. So I think the big plan is more spot and stocks for black bear, maybe going up north for caribou if we can, or moose.
Yeah. Tonia?
I am currently trying to decide what my hunt is going to look like this fall. So I have a goat hunt that is end of September in British Columbia in Canada. But I have the fortune of that I am leaving my current job and starting a new job in the fall. So I have this lovely month off where I can go hunting and there I don't have any plans. And I was really hoping I was going to draw a tag, and I'm still waiting for some results on like if I do anything in the lower 48 for some of those. But currently I'm trying to decide if I'm going to go up and do a haul road archery caribou hunt again for a couple of weeks, or if I'm going to try and do a DIY sheep hunt by myself. It's like the logistics of sheep hunting by yourself. It's hard. Most people go with a partner. But also, I think it would be insanely rewarding if I was able to pull it off by myself.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of leaning towards I want to try it. I want to do it. Been looking at maps, and the partner's been looking at maps and figuring out places where I think that I could hike myself into and try in the general unit. Just time's going to tell. I think I'll have my life figured out better in about 6 weeks here once I know if I draw any tags in other states yet. But I'm for sure doing either a sheep hunt or a caribou hunt this fall, but I'm not sure which one yet.
Oh, awesome. Wow. Yeah, definitely doing it solo. That would be amazing. Like you say, even just for the experience, you don't have to shoot anything, but just the experience of challenge and doing that would be amazing. And the mountain goat's number 2 on my fantasy list too, by the way. So yeah, I'm absolutely with you on that one.
Yeah, I booked this hunt when I lived in Montana, and after applying for a while and not drawing them, like I'm gonna get this on the books because I keep saying I'm gonna do it, but everything books a couple of years out. And like, man, I'm not getting any younger, and so then I booked this hunt, and then I ultimately decided moving to Alaska where I could do an over-the-counter goat hunt myself. And then moving to Alaska, my partner's like, so are you going to keep that goat hunt or not? And I was like, yeah, I mean, worst case, I end up having to shoot one I get the opportunity to shoot one in Canada, but then I also still get the opportunity to shoot one in Alaska. And same thing as like right before we're doing our sheep hunt, or like I was reading up on sheep, but now I got the goat books and starting to read up on goats. Just so like we are going guided on this one because it's in a different country.
Yep.
Experiments, but still, like I don't want to entirely have to like rely on this guide and be just like a dumb girl who knows nothing about goats. So I'm starting to read goats and their manners, learning what I can.
Yeah.
Also, been playing the game of like, is it a billy or a nanny? Like my partner and I will send each other pictures of goats and like learning the characteristics of like one versus the other, and it's been a cool learning experience.
Well, they say that goat country starts where sheep country stops.
I know. I got a bike here just so I could work on getting stronger, being a better hiker, everything. It's like I work 12-hour days. Like the last thing I'm going to do after 12-hour days is come home, let the dogs out, and then go back into town to work out. And so I got a bike so I can at least bike after work and not have to leave my house.
Yeah, great. Well, I'd love to catch up with you after your goat hunt. Have a chat for the podcast about that. That would be awesome too.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'll have a success story for you.
As far as I'm aware, there are, I think, 3 species in Alaska that you can do unguided. So for me as a alien hunter, the caribou's one, the Haul Road, the Dalton Highway is one that I've looked into. I'm not an archery hunter. I only ever used rifles and played around a little bit with archery, but I've looked at doing that, but you've got to go past the 5-mile marker, obviously, to hunt with a rifle. Black bear and Sitka, I think Sitka deer are the other ones that, Sitka, yeah.
I actually did the Sitka deer on Kodiak this past fall, and it was super cool. We had a transporter, so we were like staying on a boat, and they dropped us off, and then we did all our own which my partner and his brother and my brother and one of their friends came up, and we all got our deer. It was super cool. But I actually did the Haul Road last fall, and I got a caribou with my bow. And we had actually brought rifles with, because we're like, man, we're going to try archery hunting for a couple days, and if we don't do good, we're going to hike out to that 5-mile mark and use a rifle. And after hiking around in the tundra for a while, it's like, man, I don't envy anyone who wants to hike that.
It's rough.
It's like, even though it's like, I mean, it's hilly and it's flat, but even when you're walking on flat ground, you're squishing in so much that every step is uphill. You feel like you're walking uphill for miles.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Is a different kind of hard than sheep hunting, but man, it was tough too.
I've heard people say that it's like walking on a mattress over bowling balls.
Yep.
That's a good way to describe it.
You never know, it's like, oh, that looks like a clump that's gonna hold, and you step on it and you just like sink through to your knees in a mud hole. And yeah, I did that hunt with a girl too, a girlfriend. We went up there, just the two of us. It's 1,000 miles from Soldotna to Prudhoe Bay, and we drove it, and we were the only two lone girls that we saw. Everyone else that was up there that was a girl was with a male partner, and the fact that we came home with a caribou, and we wanted to come home with two, one for each of us. She was really new into archery hunting. We both did end up taking opportunities, and that hunt is something else. I want to go back and do it again. It's incredible. But it's the part about Alaska is there's so much cool hunting.
Yeah.
But you don't have time for all of it. Like, and I'd love to go hunt moose, but man, if I'm gonna hunt goat and caribou or goat and sheep this year, I don't have time for them.
Or you have to know somebody who flies a plane, or you have to know somebody with a boat. I mean, it is a lot about access as well. It can be, you might have good odds once you get there, but the getting there is the hard part as well.
Yeah. I often say to people, life is this thing that gets in the way of my hunting. So
I feel that. I just picked up a boat last summer, so I'm hoping that opens up some doors for black bear hunting. And if you're ever here, hit us up.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've been pretty good. Last spring, in 1 week of hunting, I think I saw like 8 different black bears. It's not a ton, but it's enough. Like, some of it were like 1,000 cubs you couldn't hunt, and some of them couldn't cover the ground fast enough. But with this boat, I'm hoping that opens up a lot more doors too, and could get a lot better access now. I have a couple places I want to run to this spring and see what I can find.
Well, the nice thing is, like, even if you are from out of state or out of the country, for the ones that say you need somebody with you, either as a guide, a lot of the time you can also just, if you know somebody who is a resident and they go with you, then you don't have to pay a guide to take you out specifically.
Okay. I thought that you had to be related somehow, though.
You do. So, like, my brother could come up here and hunt for brown bear, but he has to either be with a guide or with I think it's like second degree relative or something. And so I could bring my dad or my brother or like a father-in-law, but they do have to be related to you if you don't have a guide license.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well, just do me a favor and get your guide license then, either of you. That would be great.
Well, last year on the Haul Road, I was willing to. There's some boys up there. They're caribou hunting. They're like, man, I'd give anything to go sheep hunting while we're here. And I'm like, how much are you willing to pay? Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I'll sell my hand in marriage as long as it's with a short-term contract. We can get married. We'll go sheep hunting.
Yeah, Tonya, you should get it.
Well, maybe I need to start looking on Alaskan dating sites or something.
There we go.
Or just go here. You only got to be here a year before you can hunt as a resident.
There we go.
Yeah,
and
well,
you can only be here for 6 months.
Then you lose your Australian privileges.
Yeah. I've I've got a teenage son still at high school at the moment, so when he finishes high school, that might be on the cards.
Yeah. Well, if you buy I think if you buy a house here and you have one in Australia, as long as you're here, I think a little bit like one day over 6 months after you've established your residency, then you can maintain it, and then you can just have your resident license.
All right. Well, you've planted the seed. I'll definitely start researching and looking into it.
Yeah, and for any of those ones that don't require you to hire a guide, you can always come out here. We'd be happy to take you out.
Yeah, no, black bear's definitely on the list of to do. So, and I hear the meat is pretty fantastic too.
It is, yeah. And on the Kenai Peninsula, we have one of the largest concentrations of black bear, so there are plenty of them around.
All right, I don't mind wetting a line either. So if you can throw a salmon trip in there too, I'd be keen.
Absolutely.
You can easily do that. You come here in the spring and there's plenty of fishing.
Oh yeah, we've got the gear. You don't even have to rent anything. We'll just get you outfitted. You're good.
All right. Well, look, I really appreciate you guys giving up some time and chatting to me. And like I said, the hunt, the video, it all looked awesome. And even though you didn't get anything, congratulations to the two of you. That was a monumental effort. And I don't want to make sex a thing about it, but the fact that two women have gone out there and done this themselves, is just an added little, I guess, part to the achievement of it all, because it's not something traditionally done, by two women like you observed, Tonia. So
yeah, no, we definitely felt that way too. We felt like it was really cool that it was just two women out there doing it. And I mean, even here where there are a lot of female hunters, a lot of the time it isn't just two women out there together. It's, a woman with her husband or her boyfriend, or, so it was not lost on us that it was a more unique situation.
It was incredible, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's, like I said, I'm super jealous anyway, just the fact that you were out there doing it, don't, like when I do go on my sheep hunt, and I'm saying when, because it's going to happen, I'm visualizing, I'm what do you call it?
You're bringing it to fruition.
Exactly, yeah. I want two things. I want to achieve two things. One is to fly on a super cub, and the other is to eat blueberries off the plant on the side of a hill, on the side of a mountain.
We did that, yeah.
You were pick me up sometimes.
Yeah. So if we can do those two, and maybe a close third is seeing a grizzly bear. If I can do those three things, even if I don't shoot a sheep, then I'll be extremely happy.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you could definitely do that.
Well, thanks again, and I guess, well, before we finish up, we probably need to tell everybody where to go and find you and watch your videos and adventures.
Yeah. So our YouTube channel is Semi Wild Alaska, and we're on YouTube. And we have a Dall sheep video that features this hunt that Tonia and I went on, that you can find there. And we are also on Instagram for Semi Wild. What? I'm sorry. My husband is in the background feeding me this information. We are on Facebook and Instagram for Semi Wild Alaska.
Okay. All right. So same name as the YouTube setup?
Yes.
All right. Yep. And I mean, besides the Dall sheep, you've got some bear hunting, you've got, like I said, sea kayaking, biking,
all sorts,
sledding, all of that awesome sort of stuff. Yeah, it just looks amazing. And Tonia, where are people going to go and find you?
I'm just on the Instagram, and my name's spelled funny, so I'll spell it because otherwise you can't find me. It's TONIA_S number 1.
Sorry, you cut out then. It's TONIA_
S and then 1, like the number 1.
No worries. I'll put all the information in the show notes for the podcast anyway, so people can go and link in and find you. And I'd strongly recommend people go and check out your YouTube and watch some of those videos. They're definitely entertaining. I like
Thank you so much.
I like the skiing one where you're dragging the sleds and they keep tipping over on you and then running up and hitting you and so forth.
Oh, yes, that was quite an adventure.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. Go to our channel, check out our videos. We have lots of different adventures that also star Tonia. And yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. This has been such a great opportunity getting to chat with you.
Yeah, no, like I said, I really genuinely appreciate it. It's I love what you guys are doing and what you did. So
Thank you.
hey, thank you for listening in. If you'd like to contact me for a chat, pass on any feedback, or have some ideas for future podcasts, please reach out to me on Instagram at australian_hunting_backcountry or email australian.hunting.backcountry@outlook.com.au. For now though, please look after yourselves and your mates.